IVM.
When I saw the first episode of Netflix's new original, The Bard of Blood, my first reaction was, wow, that's a wonderful production. Because the quality, the scale, and the attention to detail were all as good as any thriller I have seen globally. And the series itself, just like the book by Bilal Siddiqi, starts in the sixth gear and pretty much stays there. So when I caught up with the wonderful team behind the series, Ribhu, Dasgupta, the director, the amazing Emraan Hashmi, and Shobita, Dhulipala, who I'm rapidly becoming a big fan of, I had a lot of questions. Not just about the show, but also about their stories and what gets them. Let's listen in. Shobita, Ribhu, Emraan, welcome to the Filter Koffee Podcast.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much.
Ribhu, I wanted to start with you. It's really a genre, Bard of Blood is a genre that really doesn't have too many precedents in India, right? And while it's an extraordinary book, it's also written by a fairly young author who's mostly inspired by pop culture than, international relations, so on and so forth, right? What is the kind of treatment that you wanted to present for this film?
See, from day one, I think we wanted to make a show which is easy to consume. That was very clear. We were all very clear that we want to make a story, we make a show which is, the story is simple, Of course, there are dynamics of an espionage, thriller and all that. But primarily wanted to make a show which is easy to consume. And I think also it comes from the book, because when you read the book, it's a very fast read.
Yeah.
You easily see what is actually being written. So when I had read the book, I loved it. And I had met Bilal and Gaurav at Red Chillies, and I told them that, this is something which is, one should easily adapt into a film or a series. And that's why from the conversation started, and they said that they're, planning to make a series. And then I read a couple of more episodes of it, and the way it was adapted, and then later on as the episodes were written, I was also involved in the writing to a certain extent, and like you said, that there's no precedence to it. Yeah, that is true, but also I think because of Netflix, we have seen a lot of content across the globe now.
Yeah.
And, espionage is something which I totally love. And we wanted to, make a show which is coming from India, coming from Red Chillies for Netflix. We wanted to push ourselves, and
something that could resonate beyond India as well as
and also when I say push ourselves, we all wanted to shoot at the right locations, specifically create Balochistan, and also we wanted to do something which also has an international appeal. At least the show should look international.
Right.
And then we went out, we did the recce's, scouting and all that, and finally we settled with Leh and Ladakh, where we created Balochistan.
If you hadn't told me, I wouldn't have guessed it.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
In extreme conditions, and we went there in the month of mid-October, where the locals actually come down. So we all went mid-October till mid-November, minus 10, 12, 16 degrees, and
Snowing.
Leh Ladakh is thin air, so oxygen problem.
Yeah.
But it's heavy on action, so Emraan had to run and do action. So it was crazy. I'll tell you that this experience of Bard has actually evolved me as a filmmaker. And this going through this grind of Bard, it's been exhausting, but it's something which I'll always cherish all my life. And in the same breath, I say that.
In what way? What dimension has it added to you as a filmmaker?
Because I think the kind of extreme challenges we had during making this show, because of the weather category, primarily. I'll tell you that we were shooting Leh Ladakh in minus temperatures, breeze, wind. And, these guys were, standing next to me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have made this, because Emraan had to do so much of action. I can stand alone, but, if actors are not supportive, you cannot make a show like this. And, I because he had to do so much of action, and, I used to turn and say, he's standing next to me in that extreme condition and doing so much of action. I think all of them, supported really, really well. And that's how it is. You have to have a great team to make a show like this, and all the credit goes to them.
Imran, you've worked very closely with Bilal. It's been a big year for you. Your son became cancer-free, and you worked on a book with Bilal as well. What do you think Bilal brings as a writer to the Indian spectrum?
The fact that he is not filmy, and that in itself is fresh and new. He doesn't have the same reference points as other writers do, which is unique and new. And I started interacting with him in 2014. This was, I think, a year before we launched the book, Bar of Blood. I launched it for him, and that was in Mumbai. And then we wrote Kiss of Life together. So I think he's very, very smart. He has fresh ideas. And he just has this, this frequency, the kind of films that he consumes. It's, yes, he consumes Hindi films at the same time. He also consumes a lot of international cinema. He watches a lot of Netflix. He binge watches a lot of it. So he has a lot of ideas that he's constantly, that are there in his mind. And I think that gives a very fresh perspective. And for a show like Bar of Blood, it was very important that, yes, you have to captivate our audience here, which is fine, which is kind of a terrain that we have, we used to kind of testing our creative skills and kind of engaging with them. But the international audience is very different. That's something we don't know, right? But you need a writer who's really engaged with that material before. So he's seen a lot of stuff, and that's there in his writing also. If you've read the book, Bar of Blood, it is... it just cuts across cultures and boundaries, and anyone can read it and pick it up. It's breezy, it's entertaining, it's thoughtful, and I think it's quite surprising that he wrote this book when he was 20 years old, and it's extraordinary. So he has the gift, and I think he has a very bright future.
Great. Shobita, I'm a huge fan of your work, and one thing that struck me with all your performances is there is an extraordinary sense of restraint, which I thought was very rare, especially among female protagonists who at this stage of their career, right? Is there more of Shobita in it, or is it more of the characters that you choose?
I don't know. I'm affected by the characters that I play, and a piece of me goes into my characters, obviously. So I really don't know. But I do believe that, I grew up being a very introverted child, and with time I've learned to become an outspoken introvert. But I think a restraint is something I most naturally subscribe to.
Yeah, if I may answer, I think she has that restraint in her in her day-to-day life. I think that really helped because we wanted to, I personally wanted all the performance to be restrained, and like you said, and it's great that you noticed that, because her character has so much to do.
There's so much going on,
but at the end of the day, she's not being able to do it. So that, pulling in and, reacting to it in a restrained way, I think it was...
And that adds to the drama as well.
And I do feel like a lot is internal. Yeah. I believe it a lot more when I see someone who has a lot to say, but says very little through words. I think I'm very drawn to that because I believe it. So I think I end up emulating it without realizing.
Wonderful. Right. Back to Ribhu, you spoke about precedence to a show like this, and a show like Fauda has done so well in the subcontinent. One thing that really struck me, at least in the first 2-3 episodes, is the background score, right? Even in
good question.
In places where you're building up the tension, there is a certain classical element to it, and I think Gilad, who also worked on for that, was a very interesting choice.
So when we had finally in the post we started editing, so we were going through names who can actually do background for us, and there were so many names from India we were looking for and all that. And I had recently seen Shooter, the series. So I love Bodyguard. Bodyguard. And I really loved the score for Bodyguard. So I really wanted the Bodyguard guy to, do score for us. So these names were coming. But then finally, one day I went to Gaurav at Red Chillies and I told him that, I'll give you, I think this one guy, if we can get this guy, he can do magic to our show. And he said, who's he? We have so many names. Who's he? So I said, no, it's Gilad, who is in Fauda. Because also the kind of terrain we have, the show is. So we reached out to him, and he did the entire score for Bard, and he has done an extremely extraordinary job. I think we all love his background score, and he's a friend now. I was in London last few weeks. He came there. He met me because I didn't meet him during the bar because he was in Israel most of the time, and we were on video chats, and that's how we did. We did.
He worked on it while he was in Israel.
Yeah. But Gilad did background score for, and I think that was one of the biggest, additions to the entire team of Bard. Gilad coming in and doing the score.
Oh, it added just such an amazing dimension. Emraan, the character of Kabir it just has so many layers in it, right? It's he's a professor, he's a spy, he teaches Shakespeare. You must have had a ball. This is such a awesome feast for a brilliant actor like you, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just a fantastic arc to play out, and an arc where, actors are always greedy for more screen time, and then you get 7 episodes where you have almost 5 hours, that's almost 2 films, to play out this huge arc, and I believe that you can play out the nuances and make it more effective in that time. So it starts off from a guy who is teaching Shakespeare in this school, very unassuming. You see that he's been haunted by some ghosts in his past and he's suffering from PTSD. And then slowly you unravel things about this character and slowly discover him through the show. The first few moments where probably you might not take a man like this very seriously if you had to just bump into him into a school. He could be anyone. He could be one of the professors that taught any of us in school. But he has this dual life that he has led, or he was a spy before, and you start seeing the dangerous side of him when you get into this interrogation scene, and you see that, God, he's capable of this, and I didn't see that coming. So that's, of course, the writing and just the way the character of Kabir has been formulated, and and I think the interesting part for me about playing a spy is that when I saw an interview of an ex-raw agent, this raw agent has mentioned that, normal people don't really know fear till you've actually stepped in the shoes of a spy. When you're in an enemy territory, when you try to source out intelligence, information, political information, and take it back to your home country. Right. When you're leading this alternate life where any slip, even your diction in the way you talk, that could, have you have a bullet, you could be shot at any. Yeah, the stakes are really high. So that is fear, and normal people don't know about that. So just feeling that and just understanding that, it was a big learning.
It was great. Just in the first episode, there is that sense of vulnerability in your character. That it opens up with the whole PTSD thing, and then there's a scene in the classroom. And then there's a scene in the hospital. And then you're,
Yes. So those are the things that are haunting him, and that's one of the reasons he takes up this job. One of them is also because he wants to go back and rescue these 4 agents. But part of it is that this thing has been haunting him, and he can't get over it, and he has to go back and find answers to those questions, and that's going to kind of cleanse him of a lot of things, and it could be redemption for him. So does he get that? Does he not get that? That you'll discover.
That was brilliant. So I was just thinking about your career graph, and I think
I do too.
Yeah,
I think about it.
I think you probably, it's coincided at a time when it's probably the best time to be in the content business, with Netflix happening and Amazon happening and the whole OTT scene happening and all of that. And at the same time, you're also doing a lot of Malayalam films when it's probably the finest time to be part of that industry as well, right? Yeah. How do you process all of this? What do you think about this?
I want to be a part of really good stories that move my heart. It could be from Nagaland, Kerala, Mumbai, Turkey, literally, anywhere. I don't think language should be a barrier, and I'm very, very interested in just telling stories and experiencing cultures. And I'm very curious about people, about human behavior, why one does what they do, and that's my motivation to be an actor. And I'm actually very thrilled about my whole Malayalam situation right now. I just shot for something yesterday. So, it's exciting.
Wonderful. Wish you all the best. Emraan, just your thoughts on You spoke about how the screen presence and the time this, a format like this gives you. What do you feel about where we are as an industry and the opportunity that presents to someone like you?
Are you talking about the
whole OTT,
film industry or the OTT
the
platforms?
OTT industry and the combination of both.
In general, everything. I think it's a great time. It's with OTT platforms coming, we have to pull up our socks because it happened in America. I mean, the best writing right now is on these platforms. I remember seeing a show like Breaking Bad and then Narcos. It's so engaging that it puts a lot of films. They kind of look second rate when you see this kind of writing in these shows. But it's very important for any creative industry to grow. And I think this is extremely empowering for the consumer because earlier you were only limited to television and cinema. There you are enslaved to the broadcaster's timings. And here you have, OTT platforms like Netflix that come along, and you can watch it in the comfort of your home with your family and binge watch a show in one night. This wasn't possible 5 years back or 6 years back, but now it is. And of course, in the next probably 5 or 10 years, there'll be another paradigm shift in the terrain. But at the moment, I think it's a great time for any creative person, actors, directors, any technician. Yeah. It's a great time because everyone's got work now. Everyone's doing great stuff. It's just, it's testing everyone's creative skills. And that's the way it should be.
We used to end the episode by asking our guests, what are they watching or listening to? What are you watching these days?
What am I watching right now? I just finished watching Stranger Things. And there's this French horror show that Marianne was that on Netflix. I just tuned into it yesterday. I just started for like half an hour, but I want to continue it and see it. Okay. But the last big show that I saw was the Stranger Things.
Okay. So what are you?
Marianne. Yeah.
What are you watching these days?
I actually can't remember the last show that I saw, but I saw a documentary.
I did.
Yeah. I saw Call Me By Your Name, finally. I've been waiting to watch it for a long time.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Ribhu, this also, opens up this entire vernacular opportunity, right? This is not just Hindi. And the thing about this is with subtitles and audio tracks, the almost language that you shoot in doesn't really matter. How do you feel about it and what are you watching these days?
No, I think it's great. I mean, if you take an example of Bard, the story cut across India, Balochistan, Pakistan. So you enter into territories where people speak different languages. And we actually have Vineet plays Veer Singh and he's an undercover agent. He actually, when he's languishing in Afghanistan, he's talking, speaking Pashto. So I think that's great, and nowadays with Netflix and, we everything is with subtitles. So, so it's easily consumed. And that's the best part of it. You don't need to, put a character who's actually based in Afghanistan and speak Hindi or English. Which doesn't make any sense. He has to speak the local language. That's the best part of it. And I think that's I like how Emraan was saying. That's the big push which has come in the last few years with Netflix coming in, and it's brilliant. And I think it's only going to be better because writers, directors, creators have they have given a platform, they have given a door where they can go in with strong content, strong stuff, and share with the world. That's the best thing.
Absolutely.
I think which has happened.
I think it's very liberating when the idea of a protagonist is not stuck to one mold and it's expanding for men and women. So I think it's a very exciting time like that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being on the Filter Koffee Podcast.
Thank you.
So that was our show. If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcasts.com. You can also follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram. And if you want to reach out to me, I am _Karthik. That's Karthik with an H on Twitter, and Filter_Koffee, that's coffee with a K, on Instagram.
Sachin Tendulkar, Virat Kohli, Don Bradman, and now Cyrus Brocha. Okay, probably not in the right company. I mean, Don Bradman is Australian. But it's called Cyrus Says, a wonderful show about everything. Find the show on the IVM Podcast app, ivmpodcast.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Did you know that Parsis in Mumbai, instead of being left at the Tower of Silence after they die, are now cremated? And why? Because a cow fell sick in the early 1990s. Did you know that the smog in Delhi is caused by something that farmers in Punjab do and that there's no way to stop them? Did you know that there wasn't one gas tragedy in Bhopal, but 3? One of them was seen, but 2 were unseen. Did you know that many well-intentioned government policies hurt the people they're supposed to help? Why was demonetization a bad idea? How should GST have been implemented? Why are all our politicians so corrupt when not all of them are bad people? I'm Amit Verma, and in my weekly podcast, The Seen and the Unseen, I take a shot at answering all these questions and many more. I aim to go beyond the seen and show you the unseen effects of public policy and private action. I speak to experts on economics, political philosophy, cognitive neuroscience, and constitutional law so that the insights can blow not only my mind, but also yours. The Seen and the Unseen releases every Monday. So do check out the archives and follow the show at seenunseen.in. You can also subscribe to The Seen and the Unseen on whatever podcast app you happen to prefer.